All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. On today's episode, The Athletic. We love The Athletic. They came out with a fan survey, which covered everything from the confidence level of the team to the confidence level of Joe Sakic and Chris MacFarland to who's the face of the franchise. So we're going to go through this whole thing right here and break it all down and kind of where we think all of these answers should be, as well as getting to Nathan MacKinnon's season grade. I think we know where that one's headed. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Locked On Avalanche. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us over on our YouTube channel. Over on YouTube, hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And definitely subscribe to our subtext. Link to that is in the show notes below, where you can subscribe and talk to Kyle and I on a one-on-one basis. So lots of fun over there. We will be getting to Nathan MacKinnon's grade. Like I said, it's less about what the letter is and more about what the percentages were. So we'll get to that in a little bit. And apologies for no show yesterday. As you can hear, like I'm sure you can hear, because I can hear it coming out of my own vocal cords, a little bit under the weather yesterday. So I'm feeling better today. And there's stuff going on in Avalanche land, even though they're not playing right now. So including this survey done by The Athletic. And I know Athletic is a paywall site. So if you don't have it, fear not, people. We're just going to take the content from them and use it because it's good.
Yeah,
it's good what they did. And Peter Baugh, who does a great job covering the Avs for The Athletic, threw out a survey, and there's a dozen questions on here. And wow, we think they're pretty relevant.
Oh yeah,
it's really relevant. So go ahead.
It's always good to have these polls, especially at the end of the year, and you kind of get the opinion of the fan base. And when you go through these 12 questions, you kind of get the idea of where the fan base as a whole sits, and it kind of validates everything you're feeling, because guess what? I'm still bitter about the playoff exit, so I just sit there and revel.
Well, you know what they should do is do this twice. Do this at the beginning of the season and then do it again at the end and see how certain people's like perspectives of these questions has changed.
Yeah.
But they just do it at the end of the year, which is fine. And I'm kind of glad he waits a little bit to do this and doesn't do this 24 hours after the season is over, because there'd be a big discrepancy right after a season comes to an end. But let's dive in. So he most of these are on like a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being low, 5 is high. They do get into specifics on players and things like that, which we obviously get to. But the first question he throws out, on a scale of 1 to 5, again, 1 is low, 5 is high, what's your confidence level in the direction of the Avalanche? And the option that came out on best, or on top, that was best, was 4 at 52.3%. Number 5 was second at 29%. And then you have 3 at 16, 2 scale of 2 at 1.5, and a 0.1 said 1. You always have those people. But for the most part, it's either 4 or 5. So I think fans generally are pretty happy with the direction of the Avs.
I would say typically I would sit at a 5, but last year's trade deadline, I'm sitting at a 4 and cautious into this offseason.
I would agree with that. I think 4 is very okay. 5 is you are going into next season expecting nothing less than winning the Stanley Cup.
5 was last offseason.
Yeah, I think you could have said 5 going into last year. I think you could have said that going into the season that they won the Stanley Cup. Let me say that. And going into this past season, maybe go 4.5. You know what I mean? But I think going into this next season, I think 4 is kind of right where most people are, and that's 52%. On a scale of, again, 1 to 5, how confident are you in the Joe Sakic, Chris McFarland front office? And option 5, most confident, won this at 57.6%. It went right down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 57.6% at 5, 36% at 4, 5% at 3, 0.8. Is that 0.8? Yeah, 0.8 at 2, and 0.3 at 1. So again, between 4 and 5, that's the lion's share of the voting, but most confident in McFarland and Sakic.
I would sit that at a 4 as well, for the reasons I just stated. That trade deadline is a little rough, and they basically have to put a team together this year. So I'm sitting at a 4.
Yeah, I want to see how they do this year. How do they respond to kind of what they didn't do last year?
Yeah.
So it's tough to, I mean, you can't go lower than a 4.
No.
I don't think you can, right? I completely understand it being a 5. I completely understand it with some people dropping it to a 4. I think going to a 3 just because you weren't happy with how they handled last season. I don't think you're looking at it in totality if you're just feeling like they didn't make enough moves. Well, they didn't make enough moves because they don't have a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a lot of picks. Their prospect pool is dwindling. They were in a tough spot to make a lot of moves. And we were talking about that back in February, that it was going to be tough. So I'm not really dinging them that much, but I do want to see how aggressive they are and what they can, because they have to get creative this offseason. So I would put it at a 4 as well, but teetering on a 5.
But you mentioned they don't have a lot of picks. They don't have a lot of money. They were in a tight spot. That also is reflective of the position that Sakic and McFarland had him in. So it's a push-pull, catch-22. Yeah. But, yeah, it's still sitting at a 4.
On a scale of 1 to 5, how confident are you in Coach Jared Bednar? 80.7% said 5. And you got 16% at 4, 2.8 at 3, a 0.3 at 2, and a 0.2 at 1. Who those 0.5 people are, I don't know. But feeding the trolls, basically. But yeah, this is a 5 all day. I think he's the best coach in the league. I think he's one of those rare coaches that he will hold on to this position until he doesn't want to coach anymore.
Yep.
I truly believe that. I truly believe the Avalanche are trying to create a culture of, we're not going to have this revolving door of coaches. And you see it happening across the league. And you have these handful of coaches that just go from team to team to team. And I was listening to 32 Thoughts and Elliot Friedman. And actually, I think it was Jeff Merrick who said it was, if Peter Laviolette gets the Rangers job, he's just going to call him Peter Metropolitan, because he's coached almost every team in the Metropolitan Division. And it's so true. You just have these coaches that hop around. And I think the Avalanche wanted to break that mold, and they wanted to find a coach that they could put in there who they like his system and will replace the players. Yeah. And we're not going to replace the coach. So I think he's entrenched for a long, long time, and I'm just fine with that.
Yeah, he's a 5 for me because he's a leader on and off the ice. He doesn't say those little things that become a tweet and a blurb the next day that everybody's scratching their head. He's not trying to stoke the fire. He speaks on behalf of the team. He gets players that don't he gets more out of players than they should, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy. So Bednar, 5 all day.
And he doesn't get, all kind of like uppity with the press. They asked him over and over and over again, Valnichuskin, and he was just stoic and just relaxed, and he answered the same way. He didn't get it. He's the complete opposite of John Tortorella.
And he cried winning the cup is a moment I'll never forget.
Yeah, emotional guy. So let's get to one more, and then we can take a quick break. But what should the Avalanche do with the number 27 pick? And with this one, with 50%, was trade it for a player who can help the 2023-2024 roster. That was 50%, 50.3%. 41.7% is use it. 4.2% package it to move up in the draft. And 3.8 is trade it to move down in the draft. So do you agree with that? Do you trade for a player who can help you next year, or would you use it?
I would trade for a player that will help us next year. You are sitting at 27th. You're
right, which is not, I mean, yeah, it's a first round pick and it's a deep draft, but you're not picking like top 16.
no.
So I don't like it would like who are you gonna trade that to? Like if you traded that to a team that is picking in the top 16 that wants to get another first round pick for the future, then they would do that, but they're also giving up a player that maybe they have plans for in the future. So it might not make sense. Like I don't think you're going to get what you think you're going to get by trading that pick for a player to help you this year. I don't see, I mean, anything is possible, but and like I said, it is a deep draft, so maybe there is that team that say, "Hey, we'll take another first round pick." Absolutely.
And with the power shift and how the league is going now, and now the Bedard sweepstakes, and teams are trying to compensate for that, you need, and we've talked about it, all the everydayers know what the Avalanche have to put together when it comes to a roster. Anything can help. If you could trade that piece and get somebody depth-wise on that roster, bring it on.
I will say what I voted on for this one was the least percent vote, which was use it to trade down in the 2023 draft. And here's why I said that. And it is contingent on how the draft falls. If the Avs have like, you know, their top 3 or 4 or 5 guys, and those guys are gone in the draft, trade down and maybe get 2 second-round picks somehow, some way. This is how I would trade down. I wouldn't just trade down a blanket statement like I'm trading down. I would trade down this way because you have no second, third, or I don't believe you have a 4th-round pick either in this draft. So your prospect pool is pretty thin. So if the guys that specific guys, I would even say top 3, if those guys are gone, I would try to find a package where you trade down and somehow, some way get 2 second-round picks where you can build up your prospect pool again and do it a little bit quicker by getting 2 second-round guys rather than 1 first-round guy. I don't know how you do that. You got to find a team because it's possible that those second-round picks could be mid-second and late second, and then you really have to consider if you'd want to do that or not.
Yeah,
but that's the only way I would do it because the Avs they got to start drafting guys and building up this pool again. So we will have our we're doing a mock draft right now behind the scenes with the other hosts of Locked On NHL, and we're waiting patiently for pick 27 to come around. And I have a guy in mind, and if he's there, I'm grabbing him. You're gonna have to wait for that. All right, let's hear from FanDuel, and then we will continue with these wonderful questions over at The Athletic. But FanDuel, I mean, people, what better sporting event could you ask for right now to go bet on? You have your Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. Things are looking good for them. But this is, I mean, is hockey and basketball not kind of like just mimicking each other right now? You have an excellent team in the Denver Nuggets and a number 8 seed in the Miami Heat. And then over on the NHL side, you have the number 1 Vegas Golden Knights against the number 8 Florida Panthers. This is pretty crazy. So go ahead.
And this is something you don't want to miss out on, especially if you're a Nuggets fan. You got to be a part of this somehow, some way. Ride the wave.
Gotta make that fast break over to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now new customers can get that no sweat first bet for up to, it's no longer $1,000, Kyle. it's $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. They've gone crazy over at FanDuel. There's no better place to bet all of the playoff action than America's #1 sports book. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and get that no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And on tomorrow's episode, we will there was a question thrown out. I think it was by Brandon Stokely, former Denver Bronco, who asked, if the Nuggets win the NBA Finals, where does that rank in Denver championship history between the Avs, Nuggets? I can't say the Rockies because they haven't won anything, and maybe the Nuggets and the Broncos, obviously. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll give our rankings.
The Mammoth might be up there. You never know.
Yeah, we could throw them in too. Hey, I don't know where that stands for the Mammoth, but we will. Mine are up. Mine are on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, I put my top 3 up there, but we'll go through them. All right, let's get back to these questions on The Athletic. What Avalanche prospect or 2022-2023 AHL player excites you the most? 38.6%. Jean-Luc Foudy. He excites the people the most. 24% Oscar Olausson. 18% Shane Barons. Justus Annunen at 8.7. Sam Alinsky right behind him at 8.2. And then other. I want his jersey. What number is other? He's at 2.3. So, Foudy got people excited last year, myself included. And he could take on a bigger role.
I'm curious to see what the percentages would look like if Sampo Ranta was still around.
I don't think he'd be on here. I think he would be lower than Malinsky.
Really?
I think people gave up on him.
Interesting.
For not either right or wrong, but I just don't. I don't think it was there. I think the appeal wore off.
And when it comes to who I would put my vote, it's definitely Foudy. But the most surprising thing about this is I feel like how you're talking about Sampo and everybody giving up on him. Like, are we doing the same with Justus? Like 8.7? That is from where it was. We were just so excited for him to make his start and call up, and now 8.7% of people are excited to see him.
I think people just want to see more out of him. I mean, for a guy that you followed him and you know more about him than Malinsky, and he just beat him out.
Yeah,
in this voting. So I think Malinsky gets the excitement vote. Like, you haven't seen him play a second in the AHL or obviously in the NHL. But I think it's just there's this appeal about him where it's like, I'm just excited. And that's what it is. I'm just excited to see him.
Yeah. So
we'll see where that goes. What do the Avalanche most need to add going into 2022-2024? By a wide margin. 80.6 was a second line center. Depth forwards, 11.2. Top 6 winger, 6.7. And there's the other at 1.5. So, I mean, we've talked about it over and over and over again. Second line center is the glaring need for the Avalanche. And obviously the fans realize that won by a wide margin.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Easily. All right, now we're getting into specific players here. Who is a free agent the Avalanche should sign? Number 1 here, 36.3%. Bring him back. Ryan O'Reilly. So that's probably a pretty good margin. In second place at 15.6 is Jonathan Drouin. And then other guys on here. I'm not going to go through all the percentages, but kind of in order. After Drouin, you have Jonathan Taves, Jason Zucker, Jesper Fast.
Yeah.
Alex Killorn is on there. My boy Connor Sheary, 3%. So it seems like I think a lot of people would welcome Ryan O'Reilly back with open arms, and I think there is maybe a mutual interest there if they can work on the number.
And I even admitted on the show that it was something I laughed at the concept before, but I've warmed up to the idea, and I would agree it might be time to bring him back.
It could be. It could work. It could definitely work, and it'd solve that problem, and it would solve your face-off problem too, because he is one of the best in the league at that.
And it's a veteran experience that we're going to be missing without Landeskog.
Yeah. Yep. Which pending UFA would you most like the Avalanche to re-sign? This was a little bit surprising to me. I agree with
surprising.
it. I agree with it. But I thought JT Compher would win this for the simple fact he's been around longer than Evan Rodriguez. But Rodriguez wins it by 10 points. 42% to Rodriguez, or 32% for Compher, followed by Cogliano at 10%. Eric Johnson, 6.7, and then Lars Eller, and then we got Matt Nieto, then Jack Johnson, and then at 0.6%, Darren Helm, who we still haven't heard if he's officially retiring yet. But what'd you make of this one?
I think this is more of Erod. You see a lot of potential. You love his game plan, like what he could do. I think there's a large contingency of Avalanche fans that are just tired of the JT Compher experience.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a hot year. This is a not year. This is better. This is not. It's the Jost effect. I feel like they're just kind of done with that, and they see more out of Erod, and I think it shows in the voting.
Well, I think it's like twofold. Like I said, he's been around for longer, so I just thought because of that, people would want him back. And it's what have you done for me lately? Which what JT Compher did for you this last year was his best season. So I thought people would kind of
I feel like after the experience with Tyson Jost and it just being a constant, you keep betting on that upside and what you could possibly get. I think that bridge, when that was burned and Jost left, I feel like everything turned to Compher, and it was that same anticipation. And I feel like you're getting the same result. And I just think Avalanche fans are done with that.
And I think Avalanche fans also look at maybe the numbers, right? I think it'll be cheaper to bring back Evan Rodriguez than it will be to JT Compher.
Yep.
So maybe they took that into consideration as well. What forward from the Athletic trade board should the Avalanche try to acquire? And there's some obviously good players on here. This was a little bit closer voting across the board, but Willie Nylander wins that 23.8%. Nick Schmaltz at 22.7% was in second. Elias Lindholm right behind him at 19.4%. And you got Mark Scheifele at 14.2%. Taylor Hall, Adam Henrique, and then Kevin Hayes. I'm just trying to go in order here. And then other people. So we did an episode on Nylander. I feel like that talk has cooled down a little bit. But I think a lot of talk has cooled down right now. You get a lot of it when the season kind of comes to an end for all these teams, and then it picks back up again once the Stanley Cup is over and you start getting into free agency. So some names on there. Who sticks out?
I like Willie Nylander, but when I saw Taylor Hall's name on there.
No, that ship has sailed multiple times. They've tried over and over to acquire Taylor Hall. He just does not want to come here. And I know it's not always up to him, but I think there were a couple times where he could have.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to. So I don't think they go after him again. Especially now it's been like 3 years past his best years.
I think it was just fun to see his name on there, but no, legitimately, Adam Henrique is an appealing name, even though he did not get a lot of votes. I do love his game.
I really like Nick Schmaltz. I don't know if Arizona is actively trying to shop him, but I think that would be. I think he'd be a great fit. He'd be a great fit, and it'd be a pretty good deal that they'd have to package together. But I think they could. I think they can make that happen. So that's kind of what my money's behind. On a scale of 1 to 5, what's your level of concern about Gabe Landeskog's long-term health? Avalanche fans are concerned. 54.3% say 5, and that is the highest. It goes right down the list. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 27% say 4. So that's 80+% of Avalanche fans say 5 or 4.
I mean, I'm not concerned. I already said the man's going to retire. I'm at peace with this.
Yeah. I said 3 for this because I don't want to go right there. Right. And maybe that's just me holding out some hope. I have to, man. Like, he's the captain. I have to.
It's adorable, Chris. You keep believing, bud.
And maybe my wife forced me to put 3 in there too. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I get people are going to go to the extreme, and people are going to go to, the worst case scenario. And I get that. But what we've said for a long time with him, as long as this has been going on, I say a long time, I'm just going to give him the chance. I'm going to give him the chance. So he just had the surgery, so he's not ahead or behind anything right now. It's not like 6 months from now and we can reevaluate. Are you ahead of where you should be? We don't know that right now. He just had the thing a month ago. So I think it's a little early to be asking that question, honestly, but I get why it would go straight to 5. I completely understand that. What will the result of the 23-24 Avalanche season be? 43% was reach the Western Conference Finals. So Avs fans are not convinced that this team is a shoo-in for the Stanley Cup, and I kind of agree with that. And then next to that, at 23%, is win one playoff round, and then you get to win the Stanley Cup at 20.9%. So that's the third best option right now where Avalanche fans feel the Avs are as the result of next year.
I also believe they are going to be in round 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
It's so tough to answer that question because it's all about matchups, who they're going to match up against. You have no idea.
And who's on the team?
That's what I was just going to say. What does this roster look like?
Yeah.
It's so tough to answer that right now. So tough. Ask me that again in a couple months when we have a much better idea. And then I still won't, I'll have a better idea, but I don't have 100% because, again, it's all about the matchup. Who you play in that first round could be a great matchup for you and you sweep them. Or it could be a team that you struggle with and they take you to 7 and beat you. So that's just a very, very difficult question to answer. And finally, who do you consider the face of the Avalanche? And this is between Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, Gabe Landeskog, and Mikko Rantanen. And this was a wide margin. 78.3% said Nathan MacKinnon, while 12.1 said Cale Makar, 8.6 said Gabe Landeskog, 0.6 said Mikko Rantanen, and 0.4 was another player, and they don't list who they are. I figured Nathan MacKinnon would win that. I didn't think it'd be by that wide of a margin. The kids love Cale Makar. Like, trust me, he is like the hot button item when it comes to like young tweens and adolescent. They love Cale Makar. Nathan MacKinnon is the face of this franchise. Yep. I just thought it would be a little bit closer in voting.
Yeah, it's the exact same way. Like in my household, my 2 kids only talk about Cale Makar. They do not care about Nathan MacKinnon. But when you come to like hockey fans, even if you don't like the Avalanche, you respect Nathan MacKinnon and what he does and what he brings. Yeah. So he's definitely the face of the Colorado Avalanche.
And I'm a little bit surprised that Gabe Landeskog only got 8.6%. And this is Avalanche fans voting. That's your captain. You know what I mean? That is the captain. And we all love Gabe Landeskog. And usually you kind of go that direction of like the face of the franchise is your captain. And again, I still think Nathan MacKinnon would have won, but I thought it would have been a lot closer. And if you had given me those names, I probably would have listed them as Nathan MacKinnon, then Gabe Landeskog, and then Cale Makar, and then Mikko Rantanen. I'm surprised Gabe Landeskog is that low percent wise, knowing what he means to this team.
Well, you also have to know this was taken after last season. Everybody's pretty much convinced that Gabe Landeskog is never coming back, so he's not the face, just transition.
I mean, if he had played last year, you do wonder what those numbers would be. But, I mean, Nathan MacKinnon's taking the reins and running with it. And it just so happens our season grade for today is the one and only Nathan MacKinnon. So let's get to that right now. We'll finish up with that. Bring it up here. There you go. Nathan MacKinnon. No surprise there if you're watching on YouTube. A's across the board. I went with an A++.
I see that.
I'm able to do that because I have the power of I do the graphics. So and as you can see, like this was not in doubt. It was just what were the percentages going to be. And you see on YouTube, 94% said A. Twitter, 99% said A.
That's a good hockey number.
You just had a couple, right? You had a couple outliers there that went another direction for whatever reason, and 96% on Instagram said A. It's not about the grade. It's about this superstar of a player that we are lucky enough to have. The scary thing for other teams and other players and other coaches is he just seems to continue to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had his best season of his career this last season in terms of point production and just production in general. And he missed a handful of games, 11 games, I think he missed. And he all of the season that came before it, every year we keep saying like, this is Nathan MacKinnon's best season. So it's like, how long can he keep doing that? It just doesn't, it seems like his ceiling just keeps getting up and up and up.
And he's constantly putting it up while the roster around him is changing. Like he's improving. He's becoming just a hockey machine. We talk about Connor McDavid all the time as just like your hockey robot. Nathan MacKinnon is he's a hockey animal. Like he does it out of instinct, and he's not programmed to do it. It's just in his blood, and you can see it. And then I'm excited to see what he can do next year because he constantly blows my mind at what he could pull off year after year after year.
Yeah. If you thought he was gonna calm down after winning a Stanley Cup, because that is the goal for all these guys, clearly, and for guys like him who have that goal since they were like 13 years old, and you put everything into it to finally get it at a young age, which he got it at. You think maybe they'll take their foot off the gas a little bit, maybe not take their foot off the gas in how they play, but just their demeanor. No, he wants more. Like he has that look every single shift. And I know there was some comments out there saying like, I wish he could have taken control during the Kraken series and really put the team on his back. That was a struggle. That series was a struggle for everybody. And it's tough to ask a singular hockey player to do that. He's capable of doing that, and he has done it. That was going to be a monumental challenge for him to really do that because Seattle just game planned for them well. So I don't take anything away from him from that series whatsoever.
No, and the scary thing is we were talking about how he builds on it year after year after year. Now 2023, 2024 in that season, he has to go get his cup back. So look out, NHL.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to get to a couple of comments that people had, which obviously were glowing. Where are we here? Okay. Yeah. A+ for MacKinnon. Jordan, our buddy Jordan. This is another easy grade to give out. Undoubtedly, Mac Tech gets. Oh, he gave him an A+++. So he gave him an extra plus. I only gave the plus. He gave the 3 pluses. Finally hit the century mark for points in the season. Absolute beast every game he's on the ice. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of was the consensus. My question to you, does he ever win a Hart Trophy? And it's not for lack of production. It's just when you have, the Connor McDavids of the world in the league, and then those other players who just pop up and have this amazing season, that sometimes voters take note of like, oh, we didn't expect that from like Jack Hughes or something like that. Is it gotten to the point with him where it's just expected and he's going to put out good numbers? He might not put out Connor McDavid otherworldly numbers, because you can say the same thing about McDavid, but he just keeps upping the ante every year in his total point production. And it's not, if you're leading the league in points, you're going to win the Hart, right? Like it's not, but you have to be kind of in the vicinity of Connor McDavid. And if Nathan MacKinnon plays a full season, 82 games, he would have been in the 120s, and would have that been enough with all the injuries that they did have to kind of prop him up and maybe someday take a Hart Trophy away from Connor McDavid? Is it possible for him to do that?
I'll double down on it. I'll say he wins one in the next 3 years. In the same year he wins the Hart, Bednar will win the Jack Adams. Same year.
Blasphemy. What are you taking crazy pills? Good Lord, man. Have you not been following this team for a while? No, I mean, I would love to see that. I'd love to see that. I think it's going to be very difficult for him to do it. And again, it's not because of what he can put out, because we've seen it. I think he's got to have like that perfect season where he doesn't miss a game. And he's in that 120 to 130 points in a season. He's got to do that. And he's shown you this year he's capable of doing that. So if he has that type of season and the Avalanche are the number one team in the league, I think you got to give it to him.
Yep.
That's what needs to happen for him. He can't have that 120, 130 season and the Avs be number 4 or 5 or 6 seed. It just can't happen that way. So it'll be a stretch. I'd love to see it for him, because it would fill out the resume. You know, he's got pretty much everything else right now except for that, but that would fill out the resume to put the Hart on there. So I agree with you, man. I think he can have that season. I think he can have that where, and would you say this, if it doesn't happen in the next 3 seasons, it won't happen?
Yeah. If it doesn't happen in the next 3, it's never, ever going to happen.
Okay. I kind of would maybe go down that same road with you. So there it is. Nathan MacKinnon. No surprise there. I'm pretty sure Cale Makar is next. So we go from one superstar to the next. I'll have to double check on that, but I'm almost positive Cale Makar is next. If my alphabetical ism is correct. It's got to be. Right?
Morgan?
No, Makar would be before
Makar?
Mulligan.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's Makar. So anyway, we'll get to that. And like we said, those the other thing we're going to do also is talk about some funky new power play rules in the CHL, the Championship Hockey League. So look those up, because we're going to be talking about those tomorrow. So there you go. Nathan MacKinnon's final grade. And that's going to wrap it up for us today. Well, let me move that back. There we go. All right, everyone. Yeah, we're all over the place on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I'm Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.